Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use oil pastels. Oil pastels usually come in a box. They come in a box of 12, or they possibly come in a box of 16, sometimes even 24 if you get lucky, okay? This happens to be by the company Sargent, okay? Now, they come in a variety of colors. We've already talked about color, if you remember, that when we were doing the color pencil video. If you need to go back to that video, you're welcome to. But we talked about color, then we've got the primary colors, we took out the secondary colors. And then when you're working, remember there's relationships of colors: analogous, complementary, monochromatic, okay? Now, analogous colors are usually found next to each other. What are they good for? They're good for blending according to theory. This is all theory, okay? Now, complementary colors, they're good for contrast, and they're usually opposite to each other on the color wheel. For instance, the analogous, you have red. What's next to red? You got purple, and you've got orange. If you need to go, let's say you're working with red, like I did in the video, I went ahead and I added a little bit of purple into the dark area, and into the light area, I added a little bit of orange. You could do the same. Now, that's using analogous colors that are next to each other in the color wheel. But the only thing is that yellow is the lightest. So let's say you're working with yellow. You could either go one way to the green, or you could go to the opposite way to the orange. And if you need a darker value, add in the red. In this case, you add in the blue. Now, again, that's using the analogous colors, and you're doing what we call blending, creating that chiaroscuro that we talked about, that dimension. Now, complements, what are they good for? They're good for basically giving contrast. If you want an object to stand out in a scene, it's best to use its complementary color. Like, let's say I had a red apple, and I want that apple to stand out. The apple is red. What's across from red is green. Let's say I had a yellow banana, and I needed that yellow banana to stand out. I might go ahead and put in purple into my background. So according to theory, they say complementary colors, they're across from each other on the color wheel, and they're good for contrast. And then last but not least, you got something called monochromatic scheme. Now remember, the monochromatic scheme is black and white and one other color. The goal here is to create a mood or a nighttime scene. Now, let me show you how to do it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to just, again, pick a standard shape. Normally, we pick squares, we pick circles, we pick things that are pretty basic. So that way, and I'll just go ahead and do my basic cube, okay, my cube shape form. Now, I'm using the yellow ochre. Now, if we were looking into the color wheel, yellow ochre it's a yellow, but it's mixed in with a little bit of brown. Or even they say if you add a little black to yellow, you can get a green shade. So it's somewhere in that between stage, okay? Now, brown is also found in the red family. So what we do with this color, according to this set, I'd say the light could be the white, the medium shade could be the ochre, and the darker shade in this particular case could be the brown. So I could work with these three shades right here, and that would be a decent analogous tone that I could create. I could, if I want to, because like I said, brown is in the red family, I could go ahead and use orange into that scheme, or probably it goes this way. That's a little bit better. That goes from a light to a dark. And reason, again, is that color wheel situation. Like I said, brown is in the red family, so in the red, orange is in that middle tone, and then this would be the light tone. So I hope that makes some sense to you. I know getting into color in the beginning is kind of difficult. Now, remember how I showed you with the color pencil, how you can basically go light to dark first, picking, an area. I would say this would be my light shaded area over here. This would be, because let's say the light's coming in from this side, this area should be super dark, and this should be a medium gray tone. Now I'm using pretty much a hatching kind of sensation going on here. Few different techniques work well, and technique is how you use your media. I'm starting off almost like a hatch, and I could continue with that. Okay, keep it linear. Okay, make sure my lines show. Work with my edge. This will be my darker toned area. This will be my medium graded area, okay? And then this down here will be my super dark area. So I will come in with my hatch. And as you see, hatching tends to look a little bit like blending when you put them all together. Now, another thing I haven't done yet, I haven't started in with my other shades. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and now go to the next level. I haven't touched the white yet, and you'll see why. I'm going to go ahead and add in a bit of that orange into the darker areas. So along here, I'll add in that orange. Okay, now sometimes what happens, as you remember in the other video, it tends to be a little too orange. So now I'm adding in more of that ochre, okay, that ochre shade, to make it come back to like an ochre orange, you could say. All right, now, next I'm gonna go to the brown. I'll first hit up the brown into the dark area, okay, because I know deep dark areas where I'm gonna hit the brown. Then along in here, I'll hit just the edge. I'm gonna leave a little bit of reflective light like I've done before. And because this is the area that is not as dark as the shadow, but it's a medium tone. Now in here, I'm gonna strictly keep it, I'm gonna leave it to that ochre shade, and I might even pop in a tad bit of that orange, but I don't wanna pop it in too brightly because then it's gonna compete with this. I wanna keep this the lighter area, okay? And actually, because that went a little too dark there, so now I'm gonna pop back in here, and I'm gonna make sure my edge here is determined a bit. And like I said, I'm trying to keep it a hatch, and it's hard to get a point with oil pastel is difficult because you're always losing the point. Okay, I would recommend that when you work, you could do something called beveling. If you want to, you could take like another paper and you just run it against the paper, and that creates what we call a beveled edge, and it's like a slant. And that slant kind of helps you to work in a way that you get a point. So that might be a little bit to your benefit. Now, I'm not done yet. I'm going to go into my background now. And like I said before, this is my light, this is my dark. So I'm going to come in using my hatch and go in a different direction now, just for fun. Make it different. Like this is gonna be my light, so I'm gonna continue over that. Remember, I'm a little bit chaotic when I hatch. I told you that before already. I try to keep it in one direction, but sometimes it's a little difficult. Now, you may even want to put a piece of paper down so that way you don't go over your edges if you want to, if you seek control. I'm gonna go into here now with my orange to make it even darker. Now, I'm getting a little competition in here. So what I'll do to break up that competition is I'm going to make this area a little bit darker along the edge so that way these two areas don't compete with each other. Okay, it's a little trick you could do when you're working. Now, so far, again, what did I do? I used my ochre. I haven't even touched the white yet, okay, but I will. Like I said in here, most probably is where I'm going to go ahead and start putting in my white. Oops, and be careful with the colors too, like you just saw there, a little bit of green went in. You could take another paper, like I said before, and maybe use it to clean up your color. All right, that's what happens when your color gets a little dirty. So now I'm popping in the white, and please forgive that green that just happened. It's okay, it happens. You can go back over it, try to get rid of it somehow, disguise it. Okay, and in here I'm going to come in with a light value of the ochre, but then I'm going to pop my white into this area because, like I said, this is going to be my area where the light's hitting. So I want to make sure that this area is more white. So many students, I've said to you many times before, don't leave it white. If you use the white, you got to color the white, okay? In this case, it works. Okay. Now, so again, what did I do? I strictly just, went in and I used the colors, and I'm gonna, like I said, right here, in between here, it's a little too much competition, so that's why I'm popping in the orange a bit in that area. And I'm gonna try to keep this area here predominantly the ochre with a little bit of orange, and there you go. So there you go. That's how you work with oil pastel, and that was the hatching. You can work with blending, and cross-hatching is pretty much the same. The only difference with blending when you're working, like let's say I'm blending, I work with a rotation. It's kind of like hatching, but yet you kind of rotate it until you kind of blend it together. Try to rotate until you kind of fill up your area, okay? And like I said, with the red, adding in the orange into it, try to put it in, but then not to, want to blend it. So you go ahead and literally massage it into there in like a rotation, okay, like a rotating type of technique, you could say there, little rotation in your stroke, okay? That way it keeps it from being so linear. All right, this is filling in your area, and now I'll add in my white. Again, rotation to try to get the two to merge together, to get them to blend together. Okay, I'm going from the orange to the ochre to the white, slowly from one shade to another. Okay, and again, that's the blending. Okay, try to rotate until you get it to merge together. Okay, I can go on here for a while, but I figured that's kind of enough to get you started in how to do that blending, okay, that you might need when you're working. All right, so I think that's pretty much, and yeah, you could do the hatching, you could do the cross hatching, and you could do blending. I could also recommend the other technique, which is the stippling. But remember, with stippling and color, it becomes pointillism, okay? Whenever you change the color with stippling, it becomes something called pointillism. Now, hopefully that is enough. And just practice. The more practice you do, the better you're going to get, I promise, okay? Practice does make perfect. And with art, the more you practice, the better you should get, okay? Doing a little bit of blending there, trying to merge that into the background, okay? And giving you some kind of background, some contrast there, so that way it appears. And then remember, in here, even though it's white, you want to color it white. Always white is colored in white, okay? Always make sure that you color your white in, especially with oil pastel, okay? Another crazy thing too, I thought I'd mention, viscosity. Viscosity is a weird term, but what it is that the shade sits on top of each other. It's good to layer. Like just now you saw how I went from the orange and then I toned it down with the white. I'm working very softly on top of it, and what that's called is viscosity. It's working very light. You're not disturbing the pigment underneath it. Instead, what you're doing is you're using what's on top, and you're letting it merge into the other. That right there, like I'm not pressing too hard. I'm working on the surface layer right now, and that's allowing me to get that yellow in there. I could literally come back in and get rid of some of the darker shade if I wanted to. Again, that's viscosity. It's working on top of the shade that's already there. You're not pressing down. You're kind of skimming the surface so that it, like if I wanted to right now, I could take this white and using that theory of viscosity where I just work on top, I'm not pushing down too far, I'm getting rid of it. But if